It was a weapon of mass destruction and division, not only in the United States, but also all around the world. This video is in response to many people saying, well, Trump didn't start any new wars, or there were no new wars under his presidency. And from my point of view, again, because I have a different view of what war is, right? I think many people, from my observation, have a limited view of what war is. Oh, war is bombs and bullets. And also, war is only happening if our government says it's happening. I feel that's what some people believe, which is wild to me. I'm a results guy. I just look at the results of what's happening and I'm like, oh, that looks like war. Or that looks very destructive. COVID, the whole experience of it, all of it was very destructive to humanity and the world and United States. Bill Gates talked about the fact that I believe he said 10 years of technological migration from the physical world to the digital world happened in like 2 years. Fact check me on that. But we know that a lot of technological migration happened. And when you also look in the broader scheme of things, that they are not hiding the fact that they want a lot of surveillance on us. They would love to have central bank digital currencies. They would love to have us in digital IDs. At the G20 summit in Bali, I believe it was 2022 or 3, they all unanimously voted that the top priority is VACCINE passports, which is complete and total BS when you look at the problems facing humanity in the world. I don't know anyone in the world who goes to the grocery store or pays their rent or pays their mortgage or pays their car payment or buys goods and services that goes, you know what? It's not the fact that prices are going up exponentially, doubled in the last couple of years. It's the fact that we don't have VACCINE passports. That's the biggest problem facing humanity. It's a complete and total joke. Now, there are some hypochondriac, worrying people who probably think that are basically easily manipulated by the propaganda machine. But if you look in your real world experience, no one's going to say that. No, that's not the top of anyone's mind, right? That is the top of mind for people who want to control humanity. Oh, sure, absolutely, right? Absolutely. But anyone who has a brain and can think clearly for themselves and think critically and see through the propaganda and BS, they know that's just a control mechanism, right? Now, Donald Trump is also talking about the fact of, oh yeah, we're going to get all these illegal immigrants out of our country. Oh, sure, we're going to get them out. You know, they should have never been allowed to come in that way in the first place. We have ways and means to allow people into our country who are seeking asylum, and it isn't running across the border in a marathon fashion, right? That's wild. Remember, if he pushes that, just remember, our government allowed that to happen. Money in this world, the powers that run this world financially, I call them parasites now. They're not elites. They're not better than anyone else. They're parasites on humanity. They're sucking the lifeblood financially and spiritually and emotionally and intellectually out of humanity. They need to go. It's done. They're the ones that orchestrated and facilitated that. There are checkpoints all along the route. They're busing them in, they're flying them in, they're flying them around the country, they're flying into New York. There's facilitation going on. Anyone who doesn't see that isn't looking hard enough. So when you look behind the scenes, that should have never happened in the first place. I call it the most obvious Hegelian dialectic in the history of Hegelian dialectics. As we know, the Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, which it's pretty clear and obvious they created the problem, using human beings as pawns in a sick, twisted game, to be honest. Let's call it what it is. They create the problem, flood the United States and flood England and Europe with people from other countries. And then I believe what they do is exacerbate the problem by putting covert action agents in those countries playing the part of an immigrant or of a certain group of people who they want to point the finger at, going, there's the bad guy. And then they say, look at the problems. And then, well, Americans see the problem, right? Riley Gaines, if I'm not mistaken, all of these fingers they point at these bad guys that are creating problems. And then they say, look at the problem, and it pisses Americans off. And again, there is a probability, you put whatever number you want on it, there is a probability that the person that did that is either a covert action agent or an asset of a covert action agency or groomed or created by a covert action. And it could all be total bullshit altogether, right? Propaganda machine, media machine, whatever you want to say it, that's the problem. It pisses Americans off. And then the solution is, we know the solution is they want more control over us. They want more surveillance over us. They want more lockdowns of us. They want to tell us how we can move, where we can move, what we can do. And so many Americans will be like, yeah, do whatever you want to us to get these, quote, bad guys out of our country. And so they give up more of their freedom and civil liberty. It's complete BS. It happened after 9/11. We don't want to be we got to be careful how we say things, because we're going to get either censored or the little thought police will put the ticker down below saying this was an event, blah, 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 telling you what and how to think about a situation. We don't do that, do we? We think for ourselves, and we can draw correlations and connect the dots in our own mind. But it's the most obvious Hegelian dialectic in the history of Hegelian dialectics. I circle back to my original topic, which this, by the way, is the second video I've made on this topic. The first one I felt was a little bit overt, a little bit maybe would have triggered the thought police, maybe triggered the censorship police, and I don't want any more of that on my channel. I feel that COVID, all of it, the problem and the quote unquote solution, was the most divisive, destructive war this country and world has ever seen. It pitted family members against one another. It pitted friends against one another. It pitted, in many times, lovers or married couples against one another. It pitted children against their parents in many cases. It pitted employer against employee. It pitted country against country. Remember how Donald Trump was up there saying, oh, it's the China virus. And now, of course, because everything they do is to divide and conquer, now he's talking about, oh, there was an attempt made on my life and it was from Iran. All of it, I think, is bullshit. I have zero credit. I listen to these people not now. I don't pay any attention to them. I didn't pay any attention to them during COVID, again, because 15, 20 years ago, I wrote them off as being complete liars and deceivers and negative people and all of that stuff. And so that's one of the reasons. There's like 5 reasons I didn't get worried about COVID. They've already proven themselves to be liars to me. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Benjamin Netanyahu certainly said there were, and he said in his own words, if you take out Saddam Hussein, all of the positive reverberations that'll happen in that area. Now, that was a complete and total lie. George Bush and Dick Cheney went into Iraq under a complete and total lie. Everyone knows it now. I've talked about this many times on my YouTube channel and social media at GMarkPhillips. But even though there weren't weapons of mass destruction, that what we do have now is 200,000 to 600,000 unalived Iraqi civilians. And if you listen to soldiers talk about their experience there, you will understand how that number comes to be, right? Mikuya, I think that's his handle, the guy that apparently supposedly took out Osama bin Laden. He talks about it in a recent episode of his podcast. And he said, yeah, I rolled up into this guy's house, he went for his gun and I had to shoot him after I shot his friend. And then he's assessing the situation now. And he's like, and then I wonder how that happened. Well, I was in his house at 2 a.m. in the morning. So of course he's going to try to defend his house. Of course, one by one, inch by inch, 200,000 to 600,000 dead human beings, our brothers and sisters in a different part of the world, were unalived by the military industrial complex and by the military machine that is the United States Armed Forces, right? This is how it happens. 4.5 million human beings in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, Syria, and Libya have been unalived since that event in early 2000s that you cannot speak about, you cannot question, when those 2 buildings came down because those flying planes went into them. That's some bullshit. I'm not down with it. I'm not down with it. That's civilians. That's civilians, right? That's people, again, our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world, right? They're liars. They're huge liars. And so when people say, well, he didn't start any new wars, I don't see it that way. One, on top of that, he didn't maybe start any new wars, but he kept the other wars going. My understanding, and I need to dive deeper into this, is that he helped Saudi refuel their planes to bomb the holy living crap out of Yemen. Have you seen pictures of what Yemen looks like? Yemen looks like Gaza. Oh, it's heartbreaking. Again, you know who's perishing in that? Little kids and moms and dads and civilians. Now, I don't know all of the situation there, what's happening, but I know it's some kind of a, I don't know. It's a bad situation. But when you are helping to kill innocent civilians, you're no-go in my book. You're a persona non grata in my book. I don't give a F what the reason is. Innocent kids and children, yeah, probably not going to be invited to my parties. I'm just saying. And so when people say, well, he didn't do any, I think it was the most divisive, destructive, one of the most to happen to all of humanity, right? From a relationship standpoint, from a psychological, from a spiritual, that's what I think of when I think of COVID. Now, I didn't at the time. I only thought to myself, well, they're up to something. I don't know what it is, but I know it's nothing good. This article here shows Mr. Trump there, quote unquote, managing the crisis. Again, I could be wrong. I just look at the results. I no longer listen to what these mofos say because I don't trust them, right? I think it's all spin and all propaganda. I think they're completely trying. Their goal is always to divide and conquer. I think their goal is always to keep people in a fear state, a confused state, an anxious state, because I know their 2 favorite weapons, and I know this based on my own personal thought processes. Their 2 favorite weapons are fear and rushing. They always use those 2. They used rushing when they passed the Affordable Care Act back in 2011, I believe. And remember when Nancy Pelosi said, we've got to pass it to find out what's in it. The Affordable Care Act moved them closer, based on my analysis, to what they were able to do in 2020 with COVID. That's why you do not want to give these people more power. You do not want to give them more power. You don't want to listen to them if there's any. I was going to say, if there's any way you can avoid not listening to or tune them out. The best thing people can do is stop listening to them and do not comply with them. People always ask for solutions. What's the solution? Stop giving them your time and attention, and heaven forbid if you're sending these people money. Stop giving them your time and attention. Get out of the systems as much as you can. The healthcare system, the financial system, the education system, all of the systems that you can get out of, that they create and manage and run, get out of them to the degree that you can. I know it's challenging, but there are ways and means. And lastly, do not comply. Don't comply with them. You don't need to comply with these people. God gave you free will and sovereignty over your body. It did not did not say you need to listen to criminal cartels that run your world. He didn't say that, or your country. That's the solutions that I offer you here. Now let's look at this timeline. I didn't know this, but so 2019, December 2019, an outbreak of respiratory illness in Wuhan, January 2020. See, I didn't know about COVID until what it was, because I was just coming back from Las Vegas and at the Grant Cardone thing down there, and that was March. January, February, that was March. So I didn't know, because I don't watch the news. It's totally pointless. I have zero interest in watching the news because I know it's just complete bullshit and propaganda, again, to make people fearful, anxious, afraid, and controllable. Like it's all predictive programming. It's all fear-inducing, fear-mongering. I turned the media on probably, I don't know. It wasn't 2020. It may have been late 2021. Remember when they were pushing hard to like, go get the thing, go get the thing, go get the thing. I turned the media on. It was the most obvious, overt fear-mongering I have ever seen in my life. You remember, if it's frog in hot water syndrome, if you watch the news all the time, you're led in a systematic. These people are not playing. They're super pro players. They study human nature. They study human psychology. They know what works. They've done this shit before. This isn't their first rodeo. I turned it on, having never watched it, not giving it my attention, other than in passing here and there. And I was like, holy shit, this is the most obvious fear-mongering I've ever heard. Now, if you always watch the news, it's frog in hot water type situation. You probably don't know it's fear-mongering. If you play along with the narrative, remember, they craft these narratives in a very systematic way, right? At a very deliberate way. They're leading you into what they want you to do. This is how they manipulate the masses, right? Predictive programming, fear-mongering, preparing you for a solution. Remember, all through 2020, they're talking about this problem, agitating. Remember, problem, solution, reaction. They wanted people to take those VACCINES, clearly, for whatever reason. I don't know what's in it. I don't know what it does. I don't want to know what it does. Whatever they want me to do, I'm going to do the exact opposite. 100%. 100%. They wanted people to get those things. And so systematically, they are preparing the minds of people through 2020, agitating the fear. And when 2021 came on the scene and that supposedly, VACCINE was ready, people were very, very primed and ready to go get it. They wanted it bad. Remember, they gave it to the elderly first, and then they said, okay, now people were waiting for it. They were cheering for it. Problem, reaction, solution. There's a DEADLY VIRUS on the loose. I've got to get that thing. That's what they wanted in the minds of people, right? Again, problem, reaction, solution. If there's one or two things that I could impart to anyone listening, is this Hegelian dialectic is always in play. Fear and rushing are their favorite weapons, their favorite tools to get you to do what they want you to do. And the solutions, of course, are turn it off, tune them out, don't listen to them, do not comply with them, and get as much out of all of their systems as you can. So let's continue on this timeline here. January 7th, Emergency Operations Center activates. Holy shit. So they're ramping up. Again, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know there was a problem until March. CDC issues an alert. So they're really going specific day by day. All of it. He's tweeting on January 27th, 29th. So this is a detailed report here. By the way, this is on CNN, as you saw. I'll put the link in the description down below if I remember to do that. Working closely with China and others, manufactured crisis. In my opinion, this is a manufactured crisis, or was a manufactured crisis. In my opinion, Iraq was a manufactured crisis. Again, we already know there was no weapons of mass destruction. But there probably isn't any gold in Iraq anymore. We know there's unalived Iraqis, again, 200 to 600,000. And we know a lot of chaos and disorder in Iraq. A lot of chaos and disorder in Afghanistan, a lot of mess in Libya. Remember, Libya had the highest human development index in Africa right before Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and NATO unalived Gaddafi. He was doing good things for the Libyan people. I'm not going to say he was the best man in the world, a great guy. I'm not going to say that, but I am going to say the U.S. and NATO are not great people. They're bad news bears, really bad news bears. Trump suspends entry. Fox News, shutting down. They're priming people for the shutdown. Remember the lockdowns and the shutdown? Very, very destructive to an economy. First citizen diagnosed. Okay. February 7th, Mike Pompeo. What was he? Is he chief of state? Or I can't remember what his role is. Requiring airlines to provide information. Okay. February 18th, the coronavirus is very much under control in the U.S. So that's February 2020. It just got worse and worse. I mean, we don't need to go through the whole timeline here, but the idea that I want to share with you is, I'm not saying that he created it. I'm not saying he created the problem, but for people to say there were no wars under Donald Trump, one, we've already talked about what he's doing in Yemen, but also this coronavirus thing. I just see it as very destructive and deceptive and divisive of people. And then when you go back and look at their whole goal is to keep us divided. Everything they do is to keep us divided. Read some of the stories of married couples who were either married at the time or divorced at the time with children, and the man maybe wants the VACCINE for the kid and the woman does not, and read some of the horrific stories about that. Stupid. All for naught. I think it was complete and total bullshit. I didn't do shit with it. When I heard about it, there was zero thought in my mind that I need to go get that thing. I was like, you guys are freaking clowns and you are complete and total divisive, destructive, deceptive, lies and deception run this world. And I'm like, I'm not doing shit. I don't pay any attention to these people. And I thank God every day that I don't. That's something every person on earth has to make up their own mind for. Do you want to turn off the television, the tele-vision? Do you want to turn off the media, which I like to call the media matrix? You want to turn it off and live your own life and go out in nature and have a walk or have a talk or build something or do something? Or do you want to sit there in front of that TV, the mind control mechanism that it is, and let it put you in fear mode, anxiety mode, divisive mode? That's totally every human being's choice. They have to make that decision. But look at this timeline. It continues on. See, I didn't know until March, but I just think this agitation, the solution is just not pay attention to them. All their power would wane and just go away. If they would die on the vine, to be quite honest. They need to, they push so hard using their sphere of influence, media, news, entertainment, celebrities, politicians. That's their only way they control the masses, because they know if they can control the minds of people, they control the world. They have no inherent power. God gave each of us the power and free will to direct our own lives, made each of us sovereign beings, right? If you want to give up your sovereignty to these criminals who manipulate the money, who manipulate the stock market, who bomb and do heinous crimes against humanity to your fellow human beings, That is totally your choice. What I like to tell people is this: what they're doing to someone else, they would do to you. How they treat one person is how they treat all people, right? Just because they're bombing someone around the world in the name of freedom and democracy, which is always to maintain the petrodollar or garner more money, power, and control for the parasites that run our world, it's never about freedom and democracy, in my experience. It's always to maintain the status quo of the ruling, I'm not going to call them ruling class, of the people that have usurped power from humanity in deceptive ways. Lies and deception are the way they do it. Every human being and every American has to ask themselves, do I want to continue to feed into this criminal cartel? I'm not feeding into it anymore. In fact, not only am I not feeding into it, but now I'm shining light of awareness on it and exposing it to the degree that I can, using my voice, right? And my mind to think about these things and investigate and share knowledge and information. Remember, knowledge is power. I want to invite you now at this point to go pick up the Great Awakening Guide at greatawakeningguide.com. That will redirect you to my website, gmarkphillips.com. It's a free guide. It'll download to a PDF, or you can view it right there on the site if you're on a laptop. That is all of the awesome resources, including documentaries, books, articles, videos that I've discovered on my own journey. Many people have sent me that information. I've compiled it into one document, all in one, all the resources all in one place. But also, in addition to those resources, I've also shared, I think it's 41 ways that you can be part of the solution, right? Because people always ask in all these comments, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Well, there's 41 ways that, again, I've discovered on my journey. People have shared with me. I've seen other people talk about things like I've talked about in this video. Do not comply. Unplug from the media matrix. Share knowledge and information. Become more self-reliant, which ties into extricating yourself to the degree that you can from all of their systems: education, financial, healthcare, food systems, all of it. I mean, that's the only way. You got to insulate yourself from them, because their goal is total and complete subjugation of humanity. That is the goal. They're not trying to make you freer or wealthier or healthier. It's a laughable joke. I'll tell you another story, and I've said this many times before. Probably the primary reason I knew they were bullshitting, and this is no joke, the primary reason I knew they were bullshitting us in COVID times was this. For 15 to 20 years, I've been studying diet and nutrition, because when I was in my 20s, I was like, well, I started to realize my body wasn't functioning in the best way. And I was like, well, maybe I need to look into, again, by God's grace, inspired to follow this path, maybe I need to look into diet and nutrition, not so much exercise at that time. That's my new one right now, my next level. Diet and nutrition, to make sure that my body is functioning the optimal way, because I realized if I don't do it now, I'll have to do it later when I'm 70 or 80 or whatever, who knows? Eventually people are going to have to eat right and exercise and make their body, cut out the sugars and the alcohols and the seed oils and all the bullshit, or their body's going to continue to decline. Your body's not going to run properly. So I realized back then, I had this epiphany. I was like, you better learn how to eat vegetables, season them up, cook them up in ways that are delicious. And I did that. And I'm very grateful that God gave me that insight. When you walk that path and you start to learn about food, and you learn what the FDA allows food manufacturers to put in our food and do to our food, holy shit. you will realize, again, circling back, falsus in unus, falsus in omnibus. If they're lying about one thing, they're lying about everything. The Food and Drug Administration that is regulating the food and drugs in this country, they ain't doing shit. I'm sorry, but if that's their idea of regulation, allowing manufacturers to put preservatives and seed oils and dyes and excitotoxins to make the food taste better, and corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup and sugars and GMOs, holy shit. You don't even have to be, you don't have to know anything about VACCINES. You don't have to know anything about immunology, but if they're doing it in one area, if they're falling down on the job and actually inverting what they say they're doing, they're not helping us, then they're doing it in all areas. Same with the financial market. If they're trying to help you be wealthy, and meanwhile they're bailing out their colleagues on Wall Street with your money or debt in your name, and they're sending billions of dollars to their colleagues in other country, which I think it's one big money laundering scheme, they're hosing you over financially. They're hosing us over financially. They're hosing us over with food. And then I have to extrapolate, they're hosing us over with drugs. And it doesn't take a rocket science. Everyone knows that drugs from these pharmaceutical companies, to my knowledge, never solve the problem. They solve the symptom. They mask the symptom by messing with your body. And you've heard the long list of wild and wacky side effects. And some of those side effects appear to be worse than the actual problem. They're not problem solvers. They're not here to solve the problems. They're here to make us weaker, fatter, dumber, poorer, and more reliant on them. It's not even a conspiracy theory at this point. This is why people that still don't see it, they're going to be left behind, and they are being left behind. If they don't have the brain power or the awareness to connect these dots that are very obvious now, financial system is a complete joke. Complete joke. The food system is a complete joke. The healthcare system is a complete scam. The education system appears to be a complete scam as well. Anything they run is always inverted from what it should be. They're not creating free thinkers. They're not creating critical thinkers. They're creating compliant people that will do what they're told to do, that will obey the commands that these parasites give them. That is all the goal is. Lately, I've been waking up big time to the education system, and it hurts my heart in a good way, in a analysis way, what we do to little kids in our country, which is we sit them in a desk in a cold classroom, 4 square walls, and say, you sit there all day. And that's why they fidget. That's why they talk. They should be out in nature, learning about bugs and plants and trees and going on, excursions. They should really be learning from their parents, quite frankly, right? You get a systematic control of kids' minds and you are screwed. You are screwed, right? Our education system is a complete mental prison for these kids. It stamps out all curiosity, all inquisitiveness, all wonder. They want to homogenize the kids, and they want to create a compliant citizen that will do what they're told. And they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job. Many parents are waking up. Again, the people that refuse to see it or that don't see it yet, and that's always by God's grace. That's how it happened to me. Nothing special about me other than the fact that I'm created in the image and likeness of God. Nothing special about you other than you're created in the image and likeness of God, which ipso facto is special. It's all God's grace. It's all God's grace that allows us to see the deception and the lies in this world. Right? Some don't see it. This is why I don't try to change people's minds. I make these videos and I talk about these topics for people that are ready to hear it, like you that is listening right now, right? Not everyone is. Not everyone wants to. When I had my big awakening in 2022 or early 2023, probably 2022, late 2022, was very psychologically painful because from my own experience, you experience it's a wild experience to realize, see exactly what's happening, that your government or your world is ran by criminals. Not just criminals, the most evil people in the world, Satan's agents. That's what I came to realize. I was not a Christian before 2020. I think it was 2022 that I accepted Jesus Christ and moved towards Christianity because I saw pure evil in the world. 100%. 100%. And I I realized, holy shit, these Christians are right. Never crossed my mind. I never really gave it much thought. I was aware of it, so to speak. But again, until you get hit smack between the eyes with the truth, you won't see it until you experience it firsthand. It was very difficult to go through, COVID and having to be like, no, I'm not going to get that thing. And people would ask me, acquaintances, friends, etc. A lot of people were getting it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get it because I never got the flu shot. Plus I knew the FDA is completely full of shit. And so anything that they're promoting, I'm going to stay as far away from as I can. Like, I don't want any part of it because I know them. You will know them by their fruits, and their fruits are never good for human beings, as I've discussed in this video. So I knew, thank you, no thank you. Well, not even thank you, no thank you. I was like, stay the F away from me, bro. You can go pound sand. I'm not taking anything. Instantaneously, because I'd already done the homework. This is why in life, I encourage, especially Christians who are really, really knowledgeable about that good book in the Bible, open a book about food once in a while, open a book about the financial system once in a while. I'm not saying that some of them don't do that, but I think some of them rely too much on that Bible. Again, I feel blasphemous for saying that, but God works through people, right? Yes, the Bible is his word, but there are other people working for God in this world. They are doctors that are aligned with God's plan, that want to really help people live healthy and wealthy and successful, financial analysts, financial consultants, nutritionists, nurses, teachers, there's many people in many walks of life that are working for God and not working for the beast system to deceive and lie to people. Add those things into your repertoire. There's my piece. As always, I want to talk a minute about One Life. One Life is my contribution to you on your journey. One Life is not only a guide, but it's a system for living and a system for thriving. It's a system for helping you find your purpose, know your reason for being, your ikigai, and what the talents are that God gave you, right? And then creating a way to share those with the world, a vehicle to share those with the world. It's a complete system for planning your life and executing on the projects and things that you came here to do. And you can learn more at thisismyonelife.com. I use it all the time. I use it all the time to help me overcome, the fear, the doubt, the anxiety, the frustration, to do my work in the world, which this is what you're listening is my work in the world. I always tell people, I'm not just selling you a system on how to have a better life. I use that system myself. I've been in those valleys. I've been on those mountain peaks. I know what you're going through. I know how frustrating it is to go, I wonder what I should do with my life. I wonder what God wants me to do with my life. I know how that feels. I know how it feels to be discouraged and disillusioned when no one is paying attention to you doing your work. In my case, when no one is watching my videos, when no one is commenting on my posts, when I'm feeling lost and discouraged and disillusioned, I know how that feels, right? I'm not just making a product to help you. By the way, it's not about helping you get rich. It's helping you. It's not about helping you make money. It's helping you make meaning from your life. Because my belief is the money will follow the meaning, right? When you're doing the thing that God created you to do, everything else will flow from that, right? Rick Rubin talks about this. When you're focused on doing the best work you can do, you're not thinking about the outcome. You don't want to think about the outcome when you're making your art or doing your work or creating your thing in the world, doing your one thing from the old school movie City Slickers, right? What's your one thing? And also Gary Keller's book, doing your one thing in the world. You don't worry about the outcome. You don't worry about how it's going to be received. What you're what you're focused on is creating the best possible product or service or experience for the people that are consuming that product or service or experience. Then everything comes back to you, right? Everything else is out of your control anyway. If you're a baker, you're focused on baking the best possible cake you can bake. The most delicious, the most satisfying, the most uplifting, the most nourishing. Maybe you figure out a way to get the sugar out of there because sugar has no nutritional value. I sometimes eat it quite a lot, but I don't drink soda and I don't drink energy drinks and I don't eat sugary candy. I eat chocolate, desserts. I mean, rarely will I eat it. I'm going to never eat like a gummy bear. I haven't eaten a gummy bear in a decade or more. Nothing that's like pure sugar or carnauba wax or any of the funky ingredients they put in food. Again, the FDA allows them to put in food. Our body doesn't know what to do with those things. If the body doesn't know what to do with something like a hydrogenated oil, do you know what it does to that hydrogenated oil? It puts it into fat. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to give it to the fat cell. Fat, you deal with this shit. Your body can't process it. It has no idea what it is because it's a fake food. It's a fake food. It doesn't exist in nature. So your body's like, bro, what are you doing to me? The only reason hydrogenated oils are in food is to make them last longer. And I think there's probably some what do you call it? It's not a taste factor. It could be a looks thing, but primarily it's shelf life because a hydrogenated oil is stable longer. This is why Twinkies can last a long time on the shelf. Hydrogenated oil benefits food manufacturers. See, this is why I know the FDA has sold out to corporations because much, if not, well, not all, but much of the ingredients in food is there to benefit the manufacturer. Food dyes make the food look better than it should or is because it's more enticing and appealing to the eye. Sugar makes it taste better than it should because sugar is very addictive and people will go off on that. Hydrogenated oils make it last longer on the shelf. And so all those things are beneficial to food manufacturers, and FDA turns a blind eye because they're super detrimental to the human body. This is what causes prediabetes. This is what causes obesity, right? This is what causes a host of other ailments. These fake foods and processed foods and weird, wacky ingredients, they're benefiting the manufacturer. So when they came on the scene with the VACCINE, I was like, well, how they do one thing is how they do everything. I don't know how it's benefiting the manufacturer, but I know it is. I know it is. They're sketch. They're sketchy. That's my experience. Everyone has to make up their own mind about it. That's my piece. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Am I off base with this? Do you see what I'm talking about? Do you feel this same way? And also check out One Life at thisismyonelife.com. And until next time, I wish you all the best on your journey, health, wealth, and success. And thank you for listening to this video. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, not only here on YouTube, but everywhere at social media at G. Mark Phillips. Have an awesome day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.